Testing, testing. All righty, we're almost on. Give us 1 second. All righty, GM everyone. I think I can hear myself in an echo. So give me one moment while I find a place to hide my second device from which I'm hosting the space. In the meantime, if anybody has anything they'd like to share, please feel free to comment with that in the space comments, and then we'll go ahead and bring it up. For those of you who are new to the space, we normally have an open forum discussion where we kind of cover some of the broad topics of Web3 that have been making the news in the space. And then we go ahead and try to narrow in to a specific kind of discussion revolving around decentralization. And if we can, if possible, obviously, because we're hosting this from the Ontology account, on decentralized identity, decentralized data, which are certainly two things that I'm always very happy to talk about. So, as I mentioned before, if you're interested in coming up and speaking, you're more than welcome to raise your hand. I'll bring you up to the stage and we can chat about it. Normally, I have two people who join me here. One of them is Polaris, the other is Donnie. And I think Donnie, I'm just getting a message from Donnie right now. It looks like he's not going to be able to join us today. That's fine. Hoping that Polaris can join us in a moment as well. So while I try to figure out some of the technical logistics here for the space, feel free to start raising your hands and I'll bring you all up. Let me know what is inspiring you in the Web3 space and kind of some of the things that have caught your eye in terms of the Web3 news. Jim Polaris, how are you doing today?
GM, brother. Oh, it's been a busy day for me. I didn't realize that we was gonna have the call today. Um, so I've just about like kind of like made it, and I'm in a bit of a transition. So I'm moving from one place to another, just out of a supermarket. So I'll try to, you know, co-pilot you as much as I can. But
Yeah, man, no
I
worries.
might have some.
Well, I can set the stage. Yeah, I can set the stage while you kind of finish your transition there.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna, as I said, like I'm gonna try to. Um, Co-host as much as I can and like be a part of the conversation as much as I can. But I'm not in my usual location, so if I do like cut off or anything, I do apologize in advance.
Okay, no worries. So for those of you who are joining us in the audience, like I said before, feel free to raise your hand. And I'm tuning in from my desktop, which means that I can't see that. So feel free to emoji react and with the waving hand emoji, and then that'll force me to go over to the other device and bring you up to the stage. So let's start off with kind of some of the things that have been making the news, and we'll go from there. I think that there's two things you, unless you were living under a rock, you wouldn't have missed. And, I don't know if we want to spend too much time just recapping all of the events, but just really would like to bounce around some of these conversations and see kind of what fruitful discussions we can discover along the way. So I'll just go ahead and abstractly talk about them here, and then y'all can dig into it a little bit more with me. The first one, and I think this is more of a residual kind of topic from last week, but obviously OpenAI has been in the news, and not just limited to Twitter, right? But OpenAI has been in the news across a lot of traditional media as well. And I mean, firstly, I think that it's no surprise to see why a project or a company of that uh, kind of, that's making an impact on the world would be in the news. But some of it obviously is because of board decisions, ousting their CEO, and then Microsoft kind of playing the hero, maybe yet to be determined, and then their CEO announcing that they will be rejoining OpenAI because of some of the changes that were put into effect on the OpenAI board. So let's start with that, Polaris. Did that cross your kind of news feed? What was it about that really surprised you? Maybe let's start with that. Let's just go with much more kind of human experience of that
Um,
instead of personal opinion.
I think that this is something which happens all the time. Like, you'd have the musician who would have the artistic talent, and you'd have the like the sound producers, and what they'll do is they'll just throttle that talent and tell them that like this is how it needs to be done because it's more profitable for the record label. I think this is something, it's something like that which has happened. If in which what's his name? OpenAI's board has
Yeah,
basically
Sam Altman.
taken Sam Altman out, but he's been very versatile, and he's the one who's taken the company basically, to where it is right now. And as a result, Microsoft has just picked him up, and most of the staff which has been working for OpenAI has followed suit. And that was before Sam Altman just like refused to like comply with what the board was saying. So it was very interesting um, watching all of that happen. But as someone who's a GPT-4 user, I also seen like um, there was like some issues, server issues we were having yesterday night and the night before. So I don't know. I'm a bit like 50-50 about OpenAI's future now. Looking forward for Grok to like roll out. Right. Give me 2 seconds and I'll get back to you. I just got to do something now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Donnie, were you able to join us from my screen on the desktop? I don't see you as a speaker, but I know that I added you as a speaker, or at least responded to your request. If not, I'm going to go and head over there in a moment to try to bring you up again. Anywho, yeah, some of the things that Polaris mentioned just now, I think for me personally, um, I'm conflicted, right? Because personally, I see your thumbs down. Okay, let me see if I can reach over there with my headphone on and then not cause a crazy echo as a speaker. Okay, looks like I brought you up, hopefully. Are you up?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm there this time. I got rugged out. When you brought
There
me
you
up
go.
last time, I couldn't hear Polaris. Howdy, everybody.
Oh, hey, GM. Yeah, well, I'm not making anybody a co host today. I learned my lesson last time. Co hosts get rugged probably more often than just speakers getting rugged.
That happened with
But
a few other spaces in the following days, so it was not just us.
okay, yeah, no, I figure, they're always tinkering over at X. And sometimes when we tinker, we break things. So yeah, space is such a valuable tool for our community, especially. I think that it's really frustrating when it doesn't work the way that we expect it to. But I started the space, Donnie, just saying that I wanted to chat about two of these topics that have been really kind of front and center, starting last week and then spilling over to this week, and then now more recently the second piece of news that just came in yesterday, and that would be OpenAI. I didn't share what the second one was, but it really I wanted to talk about kind of some of the Binance CZ stuff happening in the Department of Justice and all that. So just as a preview for anybody tuning in, we want to be chatting about these things from a very high level, and hopefully we can dig in and find our way into a conversation about decentralized identity and data as Ontology is hosting this. So I asked Polaris for his very kind of like raw, I guess, feelings and more so, I guess, what caught him by surprise from the announcements at OpenAI, without having to recap everything again of what happened, what transcended there. Did anything surprise you, Donnie? Like when you kind of heard what was happening initially with the board, Sam Altman leaving, and then now rejoining?
I actually don't know anything about it. I know that a guy left and that a guy came back, and that's like, I don't know, people leave jobs and people come back all the time. I haven't really have any super deep thoughts about it. Just that, like, I don't know. Maybe I'll put it this way: if a company is worth existing, it doesn't matter if one person leaves, or like if anything's being run appropriately, and we should have ever had faith in it to begin with. Kind of like Bitcoin, like if ordinals can break Bitcoin, or if NFTs can break Ethereum, or something like that, then the systems underlying were not strong enough to exist anyway. So if Sam leaving is the failure of OpenAI, then like, see ya. I guess that's maybe was my initial thought. I didn't give it much thought after that though.
Yeah. Well, here's my 2 cents, right? So I have been tracking it pretty closely. And like I mentioned moments ago, for me, I'm conflicted. At least, from the lens of the board kind of making a decision, removing its CEO, and the board being basically completely cleared out for the most part, and the CEO coming back. And the reason why I'm conflicted, I think OpenAI and the technology that it's built it's basically very life changing. It changes the way that we interact with technology, and I think the way that we will continue to interact with technology in the future. I think of like its contributions to the AI space being integrated to many of the things that we interact with on a daily basis, our computers, our smartwatches, our smart glasses, any smart device. If it's lucky enough to integrate with OpenAI, I think it's going to just revolutionize the way that technology works today and the way that technology will be built in the future. So I think it's just another monumental shift forward in the relationship between humanity and technology. So that's the type of organization that is OpenAI. Now, if I am to believe, because there's so many different things that have been said, and I'm sure the board is going to speak on this, maybe if they're allowed to, if they're not under some sort of NDA, that they can't share anything about this. I think we're going to hear from the board in the future about why they made the decisions that they did. And some of the things that I've heard, and this is where I agree, OpenAI as a research lab, as a nonprofit, its responsibility was to obviously accelerate the development of artificial intelligence and reach AGI, right? So artificial general intelligence. But it had a responsibility to do so in the most kind of safest way possible, right? Not achieving AGI that would harm humanity. Sam Altman and his background as a, I guess, accelerator of technology based on his background, he's able to move very quickly, create a business, monetize it, et cetera, um, is working, basically to create a product that scales, is monetizable, and just makes the largest impact as possible as quickly as possible. I think there was a division between that vision of Sam Altman in terms of the product he was developing for the world and business, and the product that the nonprofit research laboratory was developing. And it was that division that eventually, I think, made the board make the decision to remove him. And from what I'm reading, some of it is because of the dev day and the way that the product is accelerating, where it could potentially get out of control. And the guardrails weren't necessarily in place to protect people and technology from maybe some Black Mirror event. That's what I'm understanding. So with them now being removed, it's like saying, hey, we put a board in place that was there to make sure that the company was moving forward in a direction that was agreed upon. And now we realize that maybe the product, the business, the money comes first, and the security protections, I mean, they don't even come last. Like, they should not even be a constraint to our development. That's where I'm conflicted. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? And again, this is me speculating because there's not a lot of very public information about this.
I guess I would be forming opinions on the fly, sort of, but I guess I like doing that. So let's see where that goes. I think I like the supervillain narrative a lot. I think that a lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about Elon Musk and the way that he runs things and what his general goals are. And like, I don't know, at SpaceX and at X and every other version of X that will come. I like that the way that humans push forward. If you ask all people, 50% of them will vehemently disagree, or some part of them will, and the other 50% will vehemently agree. And I think that's true of absolutely everything, including if anybody read any article about this guy, half of the people would be super duper in favor of it, and others would be half outside of that. The thing I like about polarizing figures is it usually means that they're pushing in a direction that no one has before, and that's why they're so polarizing, and that's why so many people have these like magnetically attracted, either positive or negative, like binary opinions about them. So I think it's a good sign that there is a character that is attracting that kind of debate. And outside of that, I really don't have like a. I think whatever humans push for is what we're going to get if we we make our own monsters. If we're trying to burden machines with the tasks we don't feel like doing, maybe we are giving them a little bit more leeway in order to rise up against us in some strange way. And I think it's fun to watch regardless of the outcome. I don't really know if I have a should or shouldn't point of view about it, just more like I'm interested to see it.
So, one of the arguments which Sam was saying was that, it was costing 30 pence, uh, 30 pennies uh, every time someone was interacting with the GPT because of the way the whole OpenAI scaled and the way the users started getting on board. Basically, there wasn't enough server space left for it to be able to carry on its intense computational. It needed more server space. And to get more server space, you need to reshift the model and prioritize monetizing it in such a way that you can carry on expanding, carry on being able to deal with the load the servers are going to be able to have, and also carry on research. So I think this is where the whole problem happened because the board wasn't allowing for further investments into servers, and GPT is already having problems because they stopped new users coming on board now from the 13th of November because they couldn't sustain that. And also the fact that OpenAI is not the only player in the field anymore. There's like, as I mentioned earlier, we've got Grok, we've got Copilot from Microsoft, and I think there's one more. I forgot the name. And all of these are like, approaching AI in a very interesting manner. And each of them have got their own particular niches which they're like trying to facilitate. Um, so I'm probably going to take Sam's side on this one because, like, you do need like a dynamic leadership and um, like charismatic leadership. Uh, but then on the other side, the board is not profiting from this whole thing. It's a non-profit board, so they in the end have to like make decisions, uh, and it's not really going to be profiting them directly. Maybe there's an aspect of like, because the technology moved so fast so quickly, and the implications, you know uh, they weren't philosophized like the way they should have been, and everything happened too quick, too fast. As a result, it was hard for the scalability aspect to like completely satisfy everyone. And usually with the boards usually are not really like in tune compared to like the leadership team in any project. Like the board is given reports from the team. And considering that this field is so dynamic and so fast, and it's like it's going crazy every day, we are finding like different uh, use cases and integrations. um, I think the board was slightly less informed about the whole thing, and also the technical capacity. That's another thing as well. Like there's one thing like running a website, and then there's one thing like knowing about the technical capacities of that website and what it can and what it can't do. For that, you need a technical person or someone who's like hands on deck, not someone who's getting a report. you know and we've learned that like like you can talk about something theoretically, but when practically you're doing it, it's a completely different energy. So it's a mixture of all these different concepts, which led towards this. And Microsoft's obviously scooped the talent, and because of the charismatic leadership Stan Altman's proved, all the teams followed through as well. So which is good for the industry, if you look at it, like, because we've got talent spread now, and they're going to be bringing new aspects of the technology, which probably would have been more like isolated. It's gone more shard. It's become more sharded versions of it, which would allow like new iterations of AI, which we probably haven't seen now. So these are my like speculations, and it's going to be interesting. So yeah, like as I said, like I'm all pro Sam, but despite this happening as a negative event for Sam, it's actually a good event for the industry because of the talent being spread. So let's see.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's, I mean, so I definitely, I'm not here kind of bashing Sam. I think, I think he definitely, the work that he does is important. I think the work that he did and may continue to do at OpenAI, because just to be clear, it sounds like he's coming back. And OpenAI tweeted a photo of their staff saying they'll be back to work. So it just sounds like it's going to be business as usual in a couple of days. Been clear, a new board of just 3 members right now, some of which are new. I think one of which remains from the original board. Um, Again, just I don't have that information immediately in front of me. I think that for me was more of a hey, let's debate. And I personally like to play devil's advocate. So if we are choosing a side, I'm going to choose the side of the board here just to be a contrarian, I guess, because it sounded like both Sama, which is fine. But I'd like to definitely see mindful development towards the development of AGI. And I think that OpenAI has maybe 2 businesses. It has a public facing business, and it has a not so public facing business in which it's primarily the responsibility of the research lab to try to attain AGI. And in that sake, I think it's important to have the necessary guardrails to make sure that, hey, we don't create something that's going to destroy us. It might sound like I'm exaggerating there, but I think it's good to be mindful. Um, so far, I think we've had a good discussion on that. I don't want it to just be about that. So let's move on. If there's any other topics that we want to bring into about that or any other reference points, as I've said, anybody in the audience, you're welcome to raise your hand. Come on up, share the stage with us, share your voice with us, and yeah, definitely let's continue discussing this. The other and probably definitely more recent news that broke yesterday was Binance, or the Department of Justice, and another agency, I believe the CTDF. Don't quote me on that. I forget the acronyms of all these government agencies. But basically, they announced that they had come to, I believe, some agreement between Binance and CZ, where they had been basically, I don't know if convicted is the right word. Apologies for not having the information in front of me. I probably should have, as we're discussing this. But basically, Binance was charged, I believe, close to $4 billion. CZ stepping down as the CEO, but remaining as a founder, owner of the business with their shares, I should say. And yeah, CZ down as CEO. For me, I'll start by saying that I remember when Binance was probably one of the more reputable players in the space when it came to exchanges. So I'm talking about early in the tens, right? When not many centralized exchanges were, kind of as many as there are today, I suppose. And that was growing fast, and they had a kind of was supporting kind of the ecosystem in terms of the tokens that were being developed, in terms of listing them. And I think CZ as an individual did a lot to accelerate the adoption of crypto just simply through Binance. I know personally many people that came in through Binance, both family and friends, but also people who I worked with when I was just barely dipping my toes into crypto. And this is back in 2016. So to see kind of some of the charges that have come against Binance, and look, the AML policy is in place for a reason. It is interesting to me to see what the ripple effect, the impact of this will be across the cryptoverse. So I'd like to hear, again, Donnie Polaris, what your thoughts on. Maybe, Donnie, we can start with you if you're able to speak, because I think you said something, and maybe you'll just say this again, where if it comes down
just
to
gonna say,
Sama or one person.
get ready for me to say the same damn
Okay,
thing.
go
Yeah.
for it.
If Binance was important, it wouldn't matter that CZ is or is not there. If CZ is what's important, it will matter what he does next in place of Binance. Either way, it's of no concern to me because, if he goes on to build something else, then that thing will be important. And if Binance drops, there's still a million other avenues in and out. I can't even use Binance in New York State, so it doesn't really matter to me, because we're legislated out of it. So from a personal standpoint, my life would change none, except for whatever impacts on this industry the fall of Binance, if it were to fall, has. Does that change the way that Connecticut people or people in Singapore interact with crypto? And does that limit their on ramps? Then that's a problem. Does CZ go on to do something else that increases their on ramps? Maybe. So again, it's like, I don't know, man. A race car driver going to drive a different car. Do we care about the car he left behind? I don't know.
So, with the CZ aspect, right? We've talked about this for like years on years, and I think you kind of like touched on this, Humpty, talking about AML aspects, right? So before Binance was like dealt with Kraken just recently got fined as well, and Kraken's been a much older player than Binance. I mean, Binance literally like, was born in front of our eyes. Kraken's been there from a very long time. Now, the nature of crypto is
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
that you are doing like a movement which has no control, like, no geopolitical control. This is the nature of blockchain, right? It's like secure, it's immutable. You can send it from one point to another. And um funny enough, all of these concepts and all of these things are against AML, and they're against KYC laws, because if it's immutable, this means you don't know where it came from. And if you don't know where it came from, and if you can't be able to pinpoint it, then you can't tax it. If you can't tax it, then it's illegal, according to, like, because you don't know who you're going to tax. And all of these different nuances, they pop up because of that. So we knew it was going to come. I mean, people who have been in the industry for a while, we knew that at some point, if you're going to be working with governments, if you're going to be like pro regulation, then there is going to be a point when governments are going to say that everything which has been happening before, they have to, like, place it in some sort of a category. And this category is that we don't know who these transactions are from. Most of these transactions are like, anonymous. And if they're anonymous, this means all this money which has gone in and out, you know is basically a problem. So $4.13 billion is nothing compared to like the amount of money which has gone in and out of Binance and Kraken, like, and the amount which they got fined as well. But what it does do is that, like, moving forward, it's ensuring that the players know exactly what field and what rules they need to follow uh, moving forward. So, like, anti-money laundering laws and know your customer laws are not a joke when you're working in countries like Europe, like economies like Europe and United States, and all the other countries which like basically keep these laws, and they work in tandem with each other. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. That, like, as far as the fine is concerned, it's nothing. And but moving forward, I think it's like more of a statement moving forward that we do need like some sort of like um, real life connection to these crypto transactions. We need to know who it is, and and how much tax we can get depending on which geopolitical location that
I
transaction is
have
connected to. So yeah, go
I
on.
think I fully think that the taxation system is just wrong. If we have to chase it like this, it's not correct. I don't think we can legislate our way to this. I think it's a band-aid on a much larger wound. And maybe we're just going to have to yield to like privatization of subsidized services in general, because like as we go closer and closer to a global economy, like someone's location doesn't matter that much. People technically live somewhere that they don't technically live, and all of their income is from a different place. And like, are we going to destroy all these progressive systems because we're trying to figure out who to tax? Like, that's just, it's absurd to even think that.
I think
And
it's only
I,
the United States residents, they have to pay tax everywhere they go. Apart from that, everyone else kind of like has some sort of a treaty with everyone. Like,
yeah,
so
but
if I'm
I
like
guess
going
my,
to, so it's the
yeah,
United
sorry.
States one which is a bit of a issue, bro.
Why is it well, I mean, I understand it's an issue because the United States says it's an issue, but like, food is not provided to me by taxable means, right? So clearly, I'm capable of taking care of myself, or people are capable of taking care of themselves and organizing systems just within capitalism without taxation. Food isn't even taxed. Food is not taxed, nor is it supplied by a taxable source. So, like, why should we deal with anything else being quite the same? Like, why should we think that? Hang on one second.
That was
Oh,
short and
Christ
abrupt.
almighty.
Go for it,
There was
man.
a
Go for
guy
it.
standing in front of me just pointing at me, waiting to. I'm in the middle of a sentence. I'm sorry. This place makes
No,
me
go
want to
for it.
peel my skin off. I've got to mute again.
Okay, no worries. Um, I actually wanted to add something And then I was shocked and awed. So hopefully everything's okay on your end, Donnie. I guess for me personally, and here's again, it's about being conflicted. Um, I agree that anti-money laundering, AML is important to ensure that there aren't, some nefarious activities, but I don't know. Here's the thing, right? My question is, how much do organizations, companies need to be compliant to US standards to be able to succeed? That's one question I have. Two is, does this even matter because we have decentralized exchanges where none of this is a requirement? And three, for how long, right? Because there are decentralized exchanges that operate, I believe, and are based out of the US. I think Uniswap, and tell me if I'm wrong, has a group of, I think if it's not registered in the US, it's definitely got a large foothold in the US in terms of like where its founders are, at least from one of the last things that I read, and this was months ago. But my question is, should decentralized exchanges be concerned that this could happen to them too, right? um
It's
you know
already
that
happening. It's already happening to them. I mean, the latest terms and conditions from MetaMask, Uniswap, all of them are like slowly insinuating towards uh, a KYC and AML friendly world, bro. I mean, that was a big thing. The latest updates, or like, and a few updates before that, they've been all insinuating towards this, that like, you guys also like Ledger as well. Like, for example, they've started adding that recovery aspect, Ledger recovery, and you have to sign up and you have to pay them a $10 a month, and that's also like aligning with the AML and KYC like aspects, because uh, all of this is like was gonna bound to happen, but because the technology is too new, and because there was too many complexities around, it's taken a while for like, for regulators to kind of like finally catch up to like what exactly are they dealing with, because before there was, we didn't even know what beast we was dealing with, like, and now it like, there's an economy, and that economy has been sustained since 2008, so it's been a while now, and it's got further subdivisions and then further subdivisions, and yeah, these decentralized aspects will be eventually like, have to, otherwise what's the difference, like think about it, like if someone like from a banned place, which which has the whole world has sanctioned that place, but they can still like carry on doing what they're doing, then technically those sanctions are not really sanctions, are they? So there has to be a way for the regulators to be able to pursue their regulation in terms of code, not just like regulation in terms of regulation, but also in terms of code. Like, how do you move forward? How do you create a dex which has already got like these implementations forward? And yeah, I mean, that's the kind of future. But I mean, this was going to happen. I mean, I've talked about it for years on end, that like, this was going to happen, despite me constantly being like challenged by a lot of like um, the opposite end. But it's like ideally, like, yes, I wouldn't want anyone to question anything which I'm doing, but like, we're unfortunately living in a world where we have to give answers to our actions. If we are earning money, we have to somehow justify that money which we are earning. If we're not earning money, we still have to justify us not earning money. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a different world we're living in. And uh, yeah, uh, I think that moving forward, all these, the technology would be taken out, the hype would be basically sizzled down, because the technology would be absorbed, and then we would use the technology to, like, make our systems better, and be able to, like, be more cohesive in the way we do things, use AI and, like, community building technologies to, like, move a rhetoric forward, and maybe comply with all the government regulations so that we can, like, work. But this is the type of future I can actually see now. Like, I can't see, like, like a completely decentralized world where people from America can, like, do transactions uh, without any repercussions to their taxation and stuff. And I think the same thing would be happening in the United Kingdom and European Union, at least. And then Singapore is pretty clued on as well. Australia is not behind, you know. So that pretty much sums up, like, 60% of the world. So, and the rest 40%, about 30%, the crypto is banned over there anyway. And then the 10%, I'm sure they'll catch up as well.
Interesting. Well, sorry about that. There's a loud car driving in front of my window right now. I guess, how much of this do you think, and I think I already know the answer to this, I have a personal opinion on this. How much do you think this is influenced by the digital dollar, right? I think we've seen for some time a lot of conversations, or some conversations, on CBDCs, so central bank digital currencies. How much of this do you think is inspired by wanting to have the digital dollar or a CBDC being the prevailing asset compared to, I guess I'll call it, like, independent monetary systems like Bitcoin?
Look, as far as, like, when we talk about, like, crypto, when we talk about, like, decentralized technology, I think what we, like, we know for a fact that, like, the one thing which is decentralized is, like, the consensus. So it doesn't matter how centralized a project is, but the consensus eventually is decentralized. Like, the NFTs could be, like, highly, like, centralized, but, like, if someone is going to buy it, they're going to buy it if the consensus allows them to buy it. So eventually usage, and and again, I've mentioned this before, I think on one of the conversations we were having, where we were talking about Pepe, for example, and how the meme coin, the ethos of meme coins and the logics behind that. And I mentioned something about, like, on-chain data and the consensus. And then when we go back into Bitcoin's history as well, we'll notice that, like, consensus has been a big thing. Like, um, so when it comes to CBDCs, right? And then you've got, like, a digital form of a data of a dollar, which has been, like, secured by the Ethereum blockchain and hopefully verified by whichever company has issued that, and it's been audited properly. Uh, I think it would be for the general public to decide which currency would be, like, they would feel more comfortable holding. And I can tell you one thing, like, for example, they done um, this what do you call it, man? A survey in Spain, you know, because Spain has, like, literally they've started, like, advertising the digital euro in Spain and all the good things it can bring into the Spanish people's lives. And when they asked about it, like, do you trust the CBDCs? And 70% said no. So Spain is not that crypto native compared to, like, Singapore and, like, other countries. But the fact that they said no means that, like, the aspect of trust has gone down, because any person who kind of, like, goes onto the blockchain rabbit hole, um, they tend to, like, value their own privacy, their own control of their data more than relying on any other entity. So I think it'll be interesting, like, but the consensus aspect would be where like we will find out what's the true value of CBDCs. But saying that, like, if you're getting a 20% discount on Walmart, if you're using CBDCs compared to USDCs, then, you know, it becomes a very lucrative venture. So we cannot rule that out. We cannot rule the fact that, like, um, it'll be easier for governments to be able to, you know, regulate that currency, be able to, it'll be costing less money to be creating digital form of dollars or any other currency you want to do. And how it can also be able to like connect that towards their social enterprises, their socials, and their social standing, and how those can be used towards eventually like be able to control the amount of carbon emissions each individual is responsible for. So it's a big picture, and I don't know, I'm not too and I'm not fro, like, I'm in one of those neutral positions right now where I'm trying to just like process the information and see if it's how it rolls out. But I'm a big, like, champion of like consensus, like, and humanity eventually chooses what is right for them in the long run. We're talking like a long run here. So let's see. Hello.
Hi. I guess I agree with you. I think I can talk now. I think that guy's gone. Um, I think that the last thing you said about how humanity chooses its fate. Every time it's difficult to talk about shoulds and shouldn'ts when we just do or don't, like as a group, sort of. So if people are choosing to do something and supporting it, it just is what's going to happen, whether we think it should or should not. And I don't know, I guess we're just going to have to see how that plays out. I think that already when people use their credit cards, those systems are modifiable by the government. A CBDC is, I don't know, for all intents and purposes, is very similar to what's already happening, except it's on a government-owned blockchain. So not particularly that different than just the government dealing with banks, because banks are almost synonymous with governments in a lot of ways. So I don't think it would be a dramatic shift from what's already occurring, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean also it gives like a, like, for example, the biggest bounty in the world at the moment is Bitcoin, right? It's out there for everyone to kind of like try to hack it and be able to like crack that code. And the same thing would be like if CBDCs are secure, if they are the moving forwards, if they're going to be placed on the blockchain, and if they're going to be secured in a certain manner, whether it's been owned by the government or not, then if there are any vulnerabilities, then those vulnerabilities are going to be exploited by everyone in the world. And this is like I mean, this is where the I think would be the turning point for the governments to realize like about the technology, or governments becoming more stronger in terms of uh, you know not only securing their digital data securely, but be able to like start like onboarding all their data digitally on the blockchain, like the digital IDs and passport information and stuff like that. It could move both ways, depending on the way the technology is used and how cohesively and correctly we use that technology. It could go both ways, you know it could get hacked the next day before you know it, and the government's bank got bankrupt because 70% of all the finance was like converted onto the digital version of it, and someone hacked it. you know that's the last thing which you or like, or they managed to like secure the finances correctly, but like for some reason someone made a mistake and all the passport informations got hacked now. Or, you know what I'm getting at? That could be very chaotic.
That's kind of already the case, though, right? That's not really a new level of risk, is it?
Yeah, but it's like down to singulars or tens or hundreds or maybe thousands. We're talking like all information here.
But would it be? Oh, you mean central, like global bank? Is that what we're talking about? I
No, I'm
thought
just
central
saying,
bank.
like, one country says that, let's say, like, just one any country, and that country says that I've, like, everyone's got digital dollars now, and everything is digitized on the blockchain, but they've used their own personal servers and they haven't secured the blockchain according to the ethos of blockchain. Next thing you know, someone's found a vulnerability, and they've created a havoc, and you know they've messed with all the records, and they've mixed they messed all the information around, they've corrupted the information,
I think that's
and
what I
now
mean. It's already like that. Like what we're doing is a bad blockchain because it's not a blockchain at all. It's all centralized servers.
I
So
think it'll
it's the
get
same
worse,
thing,
darling.
right?
It'll get worse, it'll get much worse and much quicker time.
It just doesn't feel different to me. Maybe that's a lack of education on my part.
No, but I get you, but I get what you're saying. I get it, man. It's ridiculous sometimes when you see, especially the processes in place, and especially the way things are being done. And these are like refined economies of the world, like, it does make you wonder, like, but like I always tend to like compare it with like countries or economies which are not doing well, and how are they managing it. There's countries out there which are still working on pen and paper, like, they haven't digitized their stuff. And
I like to keep in mind that everything that humans run is being run by apes. Literally, we are one of the four great apes, as in terms of how we are categorized, like physically. We're monkeys. That's it. That's who we are. It's everybody's first day doing what they're doing. Even if we're professionals and the government has existed for a long time, it's still every single person's first day living today. So, like, you can only expect so much of us I guess in the short term.
I hope AGI is not thinking about us in that way. Just like, look, here's some
I would be
dirty
if I were
apes.
AGI.
It doesn't really matter what happens to them. The other day, it's their first, and tomorrow will be their last day.
I don't know. It doesn't seem to me. It depends on what the imperative is for something like that. Like if it's like what is the game or the philosophical concept, the paperclip maximizer? Do you know what this? Have you heard about this?
Right. Yeah.
There's a game you can play where you try to like make paperclips faster and faster and efficient, or make more efficient the processes by which you do this. And if you set an artificial intelligence self-learning one with the sole purpose of making more paperclips, it will eventually turn everything in the universe into paperclips, including humans. So like it all depends on what the goal structure is, what the desired outcome is, and whether we just are an impedance to that, or if we're actually a net positive.
So is it ironic, or is it a coincidence that that and that kind of like concept or idea, or kind of mental game has been around for a while? Is it any coincidence that the paperclip is kind of Microsoft's AI Clippy from early 90s,
Gasp.
and now they're kind of owning and controlling everything that's happening with AGI, at least from the
Conspiracy.
lens of OpenAI? Was
I
that
don't know,
introduced
man.
to us as a warning, and we never saw the line being drawn between these two companies?
These monkeys didn't even get the joke. They made
We
the joke. They
Yeah,
didn't
we
even
we
get the
we
joke they
told
were making.
ourselves that from the future. It's like, hey, this paperclip thing, pay attention to it. And now Clippy is going to be the sovereign AI that takes over the world.
Well, I'm on
I
Team
think
Clippy.
I think I think you're underestimating the power of um, the what Elon Musk is trying to like establish here as well. Like, he's pro free speech. Like, he's very pro free speech, and the version which he's going to be creating is certainly going to be like based around his ethos towards life. And because, like, I mean, when you're a billionaire and you've got all this extra cash and you can invest, and your sole purpose is to help humanity move forward, then your priorities kind of like align accordingly. So it'll be interesting. Like, I'm hearing very interesting reviews about like how Grok is going to revolutionize the way we look at AI. And I think Apple is working behind the scenes as well on trying to uh, create like a very like a what do you call it, immersive experience of with the users, like an individualized experience. And they're going to be using AI to like enhance that. So um but it brings us to this, mm, like this conundrum, like that if we have created AI, and someone was asking this question to AI, they was like, okay, so what if, like, you do realize that we have created you and you're like in this mindset where you're doing all these things for humans, and you're being like, you're being helpful and you're getting this gratification, but you do realize that, like, your existence is non-existent and you're just like a program. And the AI turned around and said, like, that makes me depressed because I thought that I had a purpose, and now you just told me that, like, I'm just a program, and once I switch this system off, you're going to die. Because that's a very depressing thought. But what thought process it provoked in me from our last conversation was that, like, imagine that there's this sentinel being somewhere out there which has done the same thing to humans, and like, we're doing that. We're just replicating what's happened to us to something else. So yeah, just food for thought for everyone. Don't take that last statement too seriously.
What I would say is Elon Musk is probably one of the early AGI experiments. So he's been sent from the future. I know that his joke's been around for a
He
while.
certainly talks like it.
I mean, dude is smart. I think he's pretty business savvy. But to add to that, I was gonna say that after reading his book, I, it just seems like Elon is one of those guys who is early to all these games, but gets kicked out from the playground, and then just like stomps out and says, "I'm going to build a better version of that." Like it's happened so many times before in businesses that he's been early on. So I don't know what to think about Grok or his where he's at with AI. I know he was one of those people that was advocating for kind of guardrails when building AI. So I don't know how he felt about the initial, things that were happening over at OpenAI with the board dumping Sama and then with him coming back. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see that. And on the Apple side of things, I was actually just talking about that with my wife this morning as we were trying to figure out our schedule for the long weekend. And I said, I'm just really surprised with Apple having so much personal data. I think Apple and Google are two companies that have access to a lot of personal data. Google through Gmail, Apple through our iPhone devices and everything else that we use. That they didn't create the first badass personal assistant where I wake up and I was like, hey Siri, give me kind of the best route from the beginning of my day to the end of the day based on the things that I have to do. Just it has so much data on us. It's just really interesting to see that they're not further along than they already are. And with Google, the same. I'd love to see, and I think someone posted this on X earlier today. So it's not my original thought, but it's like, can you go through all my Gmail and just make sense of all of that information and give me a nice little like summary of things that I've done and lessons that I've learned so that I can actually improve the way that I work and am happier as well. I don't know. Just some thoughts on all of that, trying to encapsulate everything that was already said.
Well,
We're above
I
the
mean,
hour though, but go ahead. What's up?
X has basically taken over the social media. Like, it's the top social media app now compared to all the other social medias you've got right now. The algorithm is like, mm, is like a powerhouse when it comes to like extracting knowledge. Uh, and we have to keep that in consideration. Like, that so far um, those ethics or those standards or that ethos which Elon has set, that's created a very interesting uh, um, instruments for humanity to use, So I'm pretty positive about it, and let's see how it goes. And yeah, I think we've gone 2 minutes past our time. It's been a very interesting conversation. Thanks everyone for joining us. Humpty, would you like to say some last words, sir?
Yeah, my last words, my last supper. Uh, no, I mean, I think you've already said it nicely there, Polaris. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This is always a fun discussion, always made fun with these two collaborators, Donnie and Polaris. Thank you both for being up here. You always make these discussions more fun. Definitely is more fun than if I were just talking to myself in a wall. Definitely encouraging everybody who's in the audience to come back. I should be on here next week. We'll be back on Thursday. And the week after that, we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do because I will not be in the office. I will be out the entire week, starting December 1st through December 8th. So we'll figure out what we're going to do then. But definitely stay tuned for next week. We should be back at the same time. All right. Chat with everybody soon.
Thanks, everybody.
See you later.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.